Howdy runners, and welcome to the first DET 842 podcast of the fall 21 semester. We're here today with Cadet Chavez, our wing commander, and we're going to go over some of his vision for the semester and also just kind of some things that have tailored to that vision that he has. We're really excited to get to work this semester. We've got a lot of good ideas, new content that we want to bring to the channel. But first, we're going to go ahead and just get into that. So, Cadet Chavez, what is kind of your idea of your vision for this semester?
As mentioned before, the biggest vision that I have is I feel like with every single semester, for every new wing commander, wing staff, there is a vision, but nothing sticks. It's always new. Nothing really lasts or sticks. The biggest thing that I'm really shooting for, that I want, at least to set a foundation for the next semester, so whoever has my position, because I won't be here forever, set a foundation down for like outreach. I really want to build a relationship with some type of nonprofit or charity. I can talk more about those, more in depth later on the specific ones. But that's the whole vision, the whole gist. Make sure that we still have that professionalism, like that we're still professional as a DET. Training will always get done. That's always going to happen. But it's the outreach part that I feel like that we have neglected. That I want to build something that lasts. After I commission, you commission. And that it can continue on for years to come. But I guess that kind of sums up the big vision.
I think that's definitely a great point. One thing that I was kind of recognizing, we've both had multiple years of experience here at this detachment, and one thing is, obviously no detachment's perfect, but
right.
I think it is pretty hard to improve upon ours regularly every semester,
right.
Because I think we do so much so well. But I think you make a great point, is that making sure that whatever bar we set at the beginning of the semester, that's got to stick. Because you could be all talk at the beginning, and then it kind of gives off this image of we're doing what we want to do, but if it's not being stuck to, then maybe we're not actually making that improvement. And what kind of experiences have you had as a cadet that was there anything that happened to you as a GMC or as a POC that made you push towards that idea?
I guess so, yeah. Just all the experience, feels like yesterday I was just a 100, but thinking back on whenever I was applying for this position, the role and the responsibilities, I thought of the good things that stuck, the good memories, outside of the training environment, what else did we do on the outside of it? I think that's what sort of stuck with me, People always remember all the good, at least I do, and that's sort of what I put into it whenever, at least my vision for it. And I'm hoping to do the same thing, leave some type of impact and imprint, because for some freshmen out there that is going to eventually hold our jobs at some point. But yeah, no, does that answer your question?
No, it does.
Yeah, okay.
And one thing that I immediately thought of is there's a lot of viewers who are obviously going to be GMC at our detachment, POC at our detachment, and one of the major changes that I saw you made was changes in the POC chain.
Right.
Just differences with flight commander positions, and then the actual names of different chains.
Yeah.
What was kind of your motivation behind that?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that actually ties in with the last question too. Just all the experience that I've had is there's this big game of telephone, So the biggest thing that happened in the org chart was I kind of cut the majority of the flight commanders for all the other chains that are non-ops related. And the reason behind that is, again, it's usually a big game of telephone, and if you have that extra person, the message that I usually give out, it's not going to be the same, It also holds more people accountable. I think it's much more easier to hold the squadron commander accountable, and they have direct access to the group commander. So it's just much more easy to streamline information, because I tell the group commander, here's what needs to happen, here's some updates, they tell the squadron commander, and that's it. That's the only communication that happens, rather than having all these different chains and all these up and downs. At least in the past, when we used to do so many emails and forwarding emails, you can scroll down and just see the amount of people went through before the message got to anybody. It would be 3 or 4 days. That's the biggest thing, just really optimizing it. Probably a little bit radical, at least this semester. People were like, oh, what happened to the flight commander positions? But there's certain chains, I guess this one, the FSS chain, with Cadet Pantine, Cadet Rush, I still kept those flight commander positions because, again, that would be too much to be in charge of outreach and PA, you know. I thought it should have been better to branch those two off and have, you know, you yourself specialize in just PA, focused on that, and it can just focus on the broader picture of it. That was the whole thought process behind it. Same thing with the stands and eval chain. You know, there used to be a DNC flight and a stands and eval flight. Theoretically on paper, at least in field training, that's something that I took, was the stands and eval chain was in charge of, you know, setting the standard and drone ceremonies and keeping everything accountable. I thought, why don't we just do that? Just combine both of the chains, just rewrite the duty descriptions for that, and that's it. Again, it's just much more optimized, much more streamlined. They have much more manpower. But no, that was really the thought process behind making all this. I was really just to optimize it, make communication better, and that's just the best solution that I found. You know, we'll see how it works. If it doesn't work, again, whoever my predecessor is can make those small adjustments, but at least that was the whole reasoning behind it.
I really do think that's a great idea, and it makes sense when you give us the reasoning behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why I kind of say that I feel like our detachment does so much well, that all those little things are like the improvements that we can make. And I definitely think it's something that could benefit us in a big way. DNC flight was actually my position, and I kind of see exactly what you're saying. Is it was like I was a DNC officer, and I felt like our flight's job could have just been understand eval,
right?
And then and now we have new tasks and because we had a lot of downtime, and so it was definitely, we could have done more with that.
Absolutely, it's just keeping people, you know, busy. I think it's one of those things, you know. The more tasks, the more roles people have, you know, because again, people get bored, people get lazy, things don't get done. So that's just sort of also, again, meshing it, you know, because it gets boring after a while. All you do, it gets mundane, hosting a DNC session over and over again, right? I bet you would have liked to have other things to do besides that.
And one of the awesome things was, you know, getting the chance to work with the MTIs and kind of plan for our FDEs and our ORIs. And so, like, if we could have maybe shifted more to doing more of that kind of stuff all semester, kept the whole flight more engaged, and doing all the positive things that you're discussing. One thing that you did say that kind of flows right into our next topic is field training, right? We both just got back from field training.
Yes.
Him, completely different experience. He was a CTA, whereas I was going as a cadet or a trainee. What was there anything huge that you brought back specifically that you wanted to implement, or that kind of changed your perspective as a wing commander?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest lesson, just life lesson in general that I took, is that, like, first impressions matter, because I saw the background of everything, and the little things that you guys did coming in, you know, getting stuff wrong, it made an imprint on the FTOs, the officers that were in charge of you guys, and us. And it made me realize that, like, it's very important that you come in knowing everything at first, all these first impression things. And whether that is, like, in the business world, civilian life, or military life, I think that's just a good skill to have, is just reiterating things that just, you know, first impressions do matter, you know? It goes with, you know, if I'm speaking in front of you guys, right, if I'm stuttering, you know, not sounding confident, you know, I lose credibility and distrust with everybody. So I think that's just a big thing that I took with myself too. You know, after I commission, you know, the first place I go, I got to make sure that I leave a good imprint, you know, I make a good first impression, good first mark, and I keep that up for, you know, continuing going. Because again, we would see people come in, they would start off strong, and again, people get comfortable and then they get lazy, and that's when things go downhill. So that's just, at least from my perspective, that I personally will take back for myself, and hopefully, you know, preach at least right now with the rest of you guys.
And you obviously got to meet, you know, people from so many detachments. Was a lot of that just kind of self-realized, or did you, like, specifically learn that from those other detachments?
Yeah, I guess that was one of the biggest benefits. Is, like, I spent all day working with the FTOs, so I was always, you know, with officers the entire time, to where, you know, we started developing a relationship, because it was just so much day-to-day things, and, you know, they would just give so much advice and, you know, some pointers here and there. And I would say, yeah, it definitely huge influence, you know. there was some personal like life stuff that I decided to change out of that I thought that I wanted to do, at least in the Air Force. That thankfully for being there, I got more of a broader eye and broader picture of how things do kind of work. So I would say yes, yeah, definitely for sure. I'm just being surrounded with different people, different ideas, different backgrounds, made me think differently, for the better, for sure.
I certainly know that my FTOs really changed my perspective. And like you said, that was just the greatest part to me is you're meeting so many officers, you're meeting so many other cadets that are at different stages in their progress to commissioning, that like you can nitpick so many little things, like I would really like this about this person, I really like this about this person, this detachment does this, I think that'd be awesome. And that was just my favorite part. My Bay FTO specifically was, it like just really changed my perspective on leadership in general. And so I'm sure the same thing goes for you, and it's awesome to see that come back to the detachment. One thing that we also struggled with, obviously the state currently of COVID and as it was at the time, how difficult has that been for your team, kind of planning, not just necessarily for the current state of where COVID's at right now, but with possible changes that could come in the near future?
I think we're lucky because there was two like before me, Lieutenant Martinez, Lieutenant Shield. They kind of paved the road for all of this. And the biggest thing is we already kind of anticipated these things from happening. So there was already contingencies built in place. Because again, this first week is all virtual. And that's just something we already planned for. Anything that we plan for in person, what are the COVID mitigations? What happens if something happens, So I really got to thank them for sure for taking that blow and allowing my team, anything we do, we have to have that second plan of virtual. Because we just have to, because last minute things happen all the time, The university or anything could get shut down at any point, and we have to be ready for that. And for you guys, that's the least that we can do is properly plan, because it affects everybody, affects me, it affects the training of the 100s, the 200s, and you guys for sure. So it's always important to keep that in mind, always have that contingency. And I can just, thank my predecessors for that, the people in the past that held this position. But I guess difficulty-wise, they left all that continuity, and again, I'm just saying thank you to them for leaving all that, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel for anything, right? It worked in the past, it got us through this point. Now we can, adjust things here and there, but difficulty-wise, we didn't have to make anything from scratch. I guess that's the biggest answer to that question.
That makes sense. And it almost gets to the point where once you plan so much for so many different possible outcomes, it almost feels really good when, when something like that happens, like boom, we got hit with first 3 weeks of what was going to be in person is now online. You're like, we're ready. We can tackle that easy. Whereas the opposite of if you're not ready, now you're freaking out, you're scrambling around. So that's good to hear that hasn't been too difficult to do that, just because of the continuity that's been left before. What is the, I'm trying to think of the way to say it. So basically there's a lot of cadets, obviously. We started 3 years ago, so we got 1 full year of being in person, no COVID, then a half year, and then into that third or fourth semester is when COVID hit. There's cadets now who are in our detachment who haven't known anything ROTC related prior to COVID. So they're used to the Zoom, they're used to the lesser uniform wear, not being on campus in uniform, just all the little things that go into being an ROTC cadet. What is your plan to kind of, if everything goes well, get back to that normal?
I think that goes with, if you notice, in the fall we usually mix the 100s and the 200s together. Now they're separated. So now there's 2 squadrons. There's just AS-100s and the AS-200s. And the reason behind that is because they both need 2 different levels of training, especially our 200s that are going to go into FTP the next semester. During those times of lead lab that we have that flight time or extra time for training, the 200s need their own specific sort of not specifically field training preparation, but again, to get them back up to speed. And I guess this is from past experience working with FTP the last semester and going to field training this semester. We just need, much more prioritization rather than sort of just having this big, huge mix. Because in my opinion, I think they need 2 different training plans because they're at different stages in their ROTC life. Especially with them, they need the extra practice. They need the extra time leading whenever they can. Less more of teaching, but at the same time, when they're put in these uncomfortable different positions, they're learning. So I guess that's the reasoning also behind it too. That's one way that we're tackling it, is separating those two, having those 2 separate squadrons, and having their own specified training plans for each, to make sure that we cycle as many people as possible. Because the biggest thing that we saw, or that I saw, and that we saw all together, and when I say we, that's cadre, wing staff, and just other opinions, is there's just a little bit lack of confidence when you're put on these when you're put on the spot positions. So that's just one way, again, we'll see if it works. That's just the thought process behind it. I think it will. Cadet Honrado has been working really hard developing an ops training plan catered for these 2 separate squadrons. So I'm actually really excited to see it definitely be implemented. It is going to be, challenging, but that's just the way it should be.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it is going to be challenging because I know personally there's a lot of stuff, even having the prior experience of what it was like beforehand, like PT is going to be different. It's going to be hard to get back into that PT schedule. It's going to be tough refreshing your memory because not only do you have people who haven't maybe been taught a lot of these lessons or like technical skills that we should have or would have learned if we didn't have to mitigate with COVID, but also the people teaching them, they're going to be, to an extent rusty.
Yeah.
Luckily, a lot of us just came back from field training.
Yeah, no, that is great.
But yeah, I think it'll be extremely difficult, but it also poses as like a good challenge. It gives us a chance to really refresh our memory, get excited, get energized about doing a lot of this stuff. You mentioned that a lot of like the we, right, cadre, wing staff, the team that you've put together. What was that selection process like? What kind of went through yours and Cadet Kentu's minds when you were making the chain? And how has that structure like really helped you so far to this point?
I think it helps great. I think when you're trying to build a team, you need to find people that you trust, but at the same time will question Cadet Kentu and my decisions, because again, I want to have different ideas because I don't have all the answers for everything. Neither does he. So that was the biggest thing, finding people that I can trust, that I know can get the job done, but at the same time have opposing ideas, but only to the point where we question things to where there could be a way to do things better. But at the same time, we are a team. I do have the responsibility of having that final decision, and whatever we choose to pick, I know that they'll support me through it, and I'll support them with whatever decisions that they have to make. And I guess that's just sort of the thought process that goes with anything, You don't want to pick your friends or people that you get along with. It's great, if everybody, we all do get along, but at the same time, you need to think, will this person get this job done, and will they, give me feedback as much as I'm going to give them feedback? Because again, I don't have all the answers to everything. And that I guess that's just being honest. That's just really what went into it, selecting people, at least for the wing staff and everything else overall. And it has helped. I've seen it for sure. While we were planning this semester, I have my ideas, and there was some stuff that was wrong that I had no idea it would have been unless somebody else would have called it out. So again, it just goes into that trust. Really is just big, just trust.
I agree, especially because it doesn't necessarily where an idea comes from. It could come from you. It could come from someone right there in the middle. It could come from the very bottom of the food chain, if you will. But a good idea is a good idea.
Absolutely.
And so if you have that system where it's set up and it can make its way through the chain, get to where it needs to go, and then boom, now we're rolling with it. Whereas if someone maybe might not be in the right spot to have that good idea, doesn't get it to where it needs to go, now that idea dies, and we're not getting to benefit from
Yeah.
the greatness of like having as many cadets as we have at DET 14, because we have so many cadets. We're obviously not the biggest, but we are a pretty big detachment, and just having that many heads together, obviously you're going to get a lot of really good ideas. What are you most excited about this semester? What really gets you going as far as just like, I know for me, this isn't very specific, but just like the idea of getting back to normal.
Yes.
Like right now, a year ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation without masks. Obviously, I know that we're not right back to normal, but it's starting to look like we're getting there. So what is it that like is your biggest excitement for this semester?
I completely agree with you. It's just getting back into person of how it used to be. It's not going to be completely normal, but again, the fact that we're still remembering, it left a big impact on us of like, wow, that's how it was whenever it was all in person, and now we have that opportunity to do that again for this upcoming class, and then to give these 200 of these sophomores to really show them like this is how it's supposed to be. And it's great for us because we get to finish it out how we started it, back to in-person, sort of that normalcy. And I'm really grateful, I'm taking a part in actually making it happen and molding it. Sometimes, I'm kind of left kind of speechless that, it's kind of my responsibility to make that happen, but at the same time it's exciting, because I don't want to screw it up. That's the biggest thing. And because again, it affects everybody. I want everybody to have that experience that we had, that we're talking about right now, because it did, we're bringing it up 3 years later, and I want to make sure that for this class they can be able and to talk about it and like that was great, and they can just build on from this foundation forward, and that's just the biggest thing, just building that foundation, making sure I set up the next person for success, that next wing staff, that next organization chart, that they have a nice solid foundation to continue building up upon that.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight on your shoulder. Obviously, because there's so many people that fall under your chain, right? Your chain is everybody. So there's just so many people that you got to cover. And last semester we had, unfortunately, just because of the state of everything, we lost a lot of cadets that normally we might not have lost. That were solid cadets, and obviously we can always just hope that the more people we can push through, the more like good officer candidates that we can push through is what we're going to hope for. What would you say to someone who's, we've got our new student orientation tomorrow. The cadets that are coming in, the 200s that have been with us for a year, but they're not used to that normal. Any POC who need that energy back, what would you say to them to get them motivated about this semester?
Oh boy, man. Honestly, the biggest thing is attitude. Just be positive, right? It was so easy, at least whenever we first got into this COVID situation, to really have that negative attitude of like things are not going to get better, but things are getting better, and it's going to continue getting better. But it's up to the individual person and the personal attitude to really, if this is something that they want to do and stick with. Because again, a lot of energy, a lot of time. You guys work really hard to make things happen. And again, for the POC out there, now we're in the background, we're the ones now making all these things happen. I want them to think about it, to motivate them, not for themselves, but again, the work that they put in, it's not for them, it's for the others. Because again, it's the POC before then, well, the lieutenants now, the officers now, that put the effort into us to making that normal happen, that in-person stuff, that left that big impact, We're bringing it up now. Now we take a part in actually making that huge imprint of memory for the people that are going to replace us, So I guess that's what motivates me. I hope that inspires everybody else. This job isn't just for me. It's for everybody. The decisions I make is for everybody. What I think will be better for all. And again, you all play a role in that. You're doing that right now. You're helping spread this message out. I really, really appreciate it. And again, everybody has a role and purpose. Even if that is just being a 100 or 200, you're still there because you're going to get into our positions very soon. It goes by really fast. But that's about all that I have to say.
Opposite of that, right?
Opposite of that.
Everyone's gonna hit that point. I think pretty much everyone here at the detachment that's been here for years will tell you that there's going to be the lows too.
Yes.
You can feel motivated all you want, but it's not always going to last. And whether that's schoolwork, whether that's ROTC work, life outside of all of that, what would you just say to someone who's going through that, that are going to be the cadets in your chain? How do you kind of navigate that while there's so much going on? You've got classes, you've got PT, you've got lead lab, you've got all this stuff.
Absolutely. It's stressful. It really is stressful, you know, with school. On top of that, this is, you know, basically another job. It is, you know, because, you know, it's a big, huge job interview because we have a career lined up at the very end. And that's just the big common goal. We all want a commission. I want a commission. You want a commission. Client in the back wants to commission. We all do. That's the common goal. That's the bond that we already have being in this program. That we're all just so focused that we want to pin on those bars and become Air Force and Space Force officers. What I tell myself, especially, you know, now that I have this position, and the ones beforehand, you know, the responsibility I take, obviously a lot more now, you know, if things go bad, you know, they go to me to hold accountable for, and that's fine, you know. That goes both ways. But if somebody is struggling and it's sort of like, you know, times are getting tough, and it will, you know, me too. I'm probably going to get to a point where, man, this sucks, you know? Just got to sit there, probably what I would do, take a break, turn off the laptop, put the phone away, kind of just shut everything out, and just think to yourself, why am I here? I'm here to commission, I have a career lined up, all these benefits. You know, look up to the cadre, look how, you know, successful they are. They really are successful, great people. I want to get to that point. And if, in hindsight view, 4 years is such a small portion of our lives that I think that we can bite the bullet, you know, and sort of just get through it. But I would definitely say if it is that really hard, difficult time, just kind of take time for yourself, turn off everything, shut everything out. Because I know personally, you know, if somebody came up to me and it's like, hey, this is too much, I need some time to myself. Absolutely, yeah, take the time to yourself, you know, reset yourself. Because we all need that. At the end, we're all humans, you know, we all have emotions. So again, don't neglect yourself over all these jobs and other priorities. So definitely take time for yourself when you can, right? You know, the non-ROTC days, make it a non-ROTC day, right? Obviously do your job, take care of that, but, you know, take that time for yourself to just focus on school and your other responsibilities you have. And, you know, the next day, if it's a Thursday, then there we go, you know, it's work day. But any like non-ROTC days, please take advantage of that, reset yourself. But I guess that's just the biggest advice that's worked for me, and I've seen that works for everybody else, is just, you know, distinguish of, you know, school, work, all these other non-ROTC related things to ROTC things, you know. It just comes down to just time management. What works best for you? We're all different. And that's really it, you know, that's all that I have. Kind of just vomited all this information, but
No,
hopefully it's
absolutely.
digestible and makes sense.
And communication, like you said, is so important, especially because our detachment really is like a huge family. Like I don't think there's a single cadet here that I wouldn't trust to talk to on that personal level. And like we're talking about it now, like we all know it's gonna happen. There's no reason to really fight it. Just dealing with it properly is the best thing that you can do. And so communicate. Like, obviously, if I'm, you know, maybe I'm cadet X or cadet Y, and I just paid for all my classes, and then boom, my car broke down, and I'm freaking out. Like, that's something so easy that could happen, so realistic, and it completely, you know, could ruin the start of your semester. That's when you gotta go to your squadron commander. That's when I gotta go to my squadron commander, and just kind of let them know what's going on. I don't have to be super personal about anything I don't want to be, but just communicate, because if I don't communicate, that's when now it's starting to affect my personal and work ROTC life, but no one knows why. So
Absolutely.
Now it's just me underperforming. But once you start to communicate, and then like you said, knowing the why pushes you through so much. We hear it from cadre all the time. It's just know your why. If you're doing it because you really want to serve the country and that's truly in your heart what you want to do, remember that when you're struggling. If you're doing it to get your family out of a rough situation, remember that when you're struggling. And it'll get you through just so much. we're just about out of time here. We want to leave you a little bit of time. Just anything you want to say to your cadets. We got a whole semester coming up. I know you got a lot planned.
Yeah, no, they're not. They're definitely not my cadets. They're all of you guys for the POC. They're your guys' cadets as much as mine. I just do different things. I just do this other policy making, planning stuff. But it's you guys that make things happen. It's you guys that make the plans. It's you guys that have to be there and teach them these things directly. Which that's part of the job that pains me. I cannot be so hands-on anymore that I have to entrust all of you guys to do that for me and everybody else, and I really do. So again, that's whenever I keep preaching, you all have a role and a purpose, you know. However, it doesn't matter how many bars or cadet ranks you have. It's just a role and a job, right? It changes every semester. So biggest thing I ask is, again, we're just all one team. I ask that you guys trust whatever decisions I make. There will be times where it might not make sense in the moment, but I want you guys to really think that my team and myself went through the proper thought process and we made the decision that at the time was right. And maybe it's not, you know, it probably won't be. But I want you guys to really just, again, I will support you guys with anything, but I ask the same that you guys trust me and my team and whatever decisions that we decide to take at the time. You know, if it's not the right one, oh well, we'll adjust, we'll learn from the mistakes. That's it, we move on. But that's what just I ask from the POC and the cadets, the new AS100s, the AS200s. You know, stick it out. You know, if this isn't for you, that's fine. But the skills and opportunities that you're gonna get from here are life skills that you can take and apply anywhere. You know, learning how to publicly speak, how to give a presentation, that's applicable to your classes, job interviews, the business life, anything you do. So again, and I understand it's not for everybody. It really isn't. You know, it's tough. It's hard. It's sometimes at times it can be very blunt, right? Very cold. But that's just we just decided to go that route. You know, it's just always remembering your why. That's really all that I have. You know, if you have any other questions for me, I'm very, very open. Do not be intimidated to ask me anything. Even afterwards, we can talk more after this. But that's all that I have to say. Welcome to everybody, the new POC, current POC, all the new cadets. I'm happy to have you guys here. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.
I think that was super well said, especially just because, going back to my last point, you want to know your why, but some cadets of ours aren't going to know their why. And maybe they stick with us for a year or two and then, you know, decide this is what they want to do. That's not a problem. But your point that you learn so much in ROTC, especially here at DET 842, that you still come away with something. It's not like, man, that was a waste of my 2 years. You're coming away with so many life skills. I know if I, for some reason, you know, if I got injured or something and I left right now, I've learned so much from the cadre, from my wingmen here. It's such an awesome experience, and the whole, you know, purpose of our detachment, or of any detachment, but one thing that we really focus on is just like commissioning exceptional officers. And so if it is something you stick through with, like, they're tailoring so much of our training to make sure that we're going to be able to serve our airmen and our teams and ourselves as best as we can once we get our commission, because that's the ultimate goal. But yeah, no, I completely agree with what you had to say, and we just want to thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Absolutely.
PA team, myself, I'm sure our audience liked hearing from you today.
I hope.
There's so much to learn from someone who's worked so hard, and I think you really deserve, you know, obviously the position you're in, and I'm really, really excited to see what you do with it.
Thank you.
I know you probably have a lot planned, and you won't tell us until, you know.
Right.
Gotta save some surprises.
Exactly. Keep people on edge.
But yeah, no, thank you so much for coming with us today and taking time and spending it with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, for sure. Thank you guys.
Like I said, we're really excited. This is our obviously first episode of the semester for the DET 842 podcast. We've got a lot of ideas on new content that we can bring you. We're always trying to improve, obviously, the podcast itself, and then PA team is just working on so many things to get us out there more, get more exposure. Be able to help people learn about us and, you know, gain interest in what we do here. But that's all we're going to have for today, and we'll be very happy to hear from you guys next time.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.